I wasn't going to make a video about this. My original plan was just to reappear with some kind of toy review or educational content like nothing ever happened. But it's been a minute since I've uploaded anything, and by a minute, I mean a year and a half. And the whole point of this work has really always been talking about things that people don't normally talk about in the hopes that it might help someone. So in the spirit of that, I want to be a little brave and talk about what happened. So those of you who follow me on Twitter might already know that in early 2019, something really traumatic and life-altering happened to me. And I'm not going to get into what that situation was, but what I do really want to talk about is how trauma can impact your brain and specifically your experience around sex. Now, contrary to what a lot of people tend to assume based on my work, I've never been a particularly sexual person, by which I just mean my interest in sex has always been a lot more academic than personal. Like, I care way more about the biology and the sociology of it all than I do about my own sex life. Which isn't to say that I don't enjoy sex, or I haven't had great sex, or that I don't experience sexual attraction, because I definitely do. But my feelings about my own sex life are a lot like my feelings about, like, video games. Like, it's super fun, but I don't necessarily seek it out as much as some other people do, and if I go long periods without it, I don't really notice or care. If we want to get sciencey for a minute and talk about the dual control model of desire as a sexual excitation system, basically your accelerator that constantly scans for turn-ons and tells you when to get turned on, and a sexual inhibition system, the brakes that scan for turn-offs/threats and tell you when not to be turned on, I'd say I've never had a particularly sensitive SES or accelerator. And that's fine. That's never been a problem for me. It may take a little more to get the accelerator going, but once it is, you know, it's a smooth ride, or whatever. Car metaphors. What did become a problem after the trauma is that my SIS just shut everything down. All the time. Suddenly that desire brake pedal was pressed to the floor and not budging. So even when I wanted sex, I didn't want sex. Or even masturbation. And that was really new to me. Now, because of my work and my interest in sex ed, I've known about stuff like the dual control model and arousal non-concordance for a long time. I'm sure I've even made a video about it, probably 4 or 5 years ago now. If you want to learn more about it, Dr. Emily Nagoski has a really informative TED Talk and a great book on the subject called Come As You Are. So the book is very cis woman centered and even states that outright, so that's something to be aware of. So anyway, I understood kind of why this was happening. I knew it was extremely normal, but it was still new and strange to me. And because of the circumstances that triggered those sexual changes, I was also dealing with a lot of extreme mental health issues and just big physical life changes on top of it. Like, for example, I moved house 3 times in the first half of 2019. I lived 4 different places in 7 months, and honestly spent most of that time so depressed I could barely leave my bed. So I was just mentally and physically exhausted. I didn't feel comfortable being on camera, and anything sexual was off the table in any capacity. There was this shitty tweet from acclaimed sex ed celeb Dr. Ruth in June 2019 about how if you hadn't had sex by that point in the year, maybe you should be trying harder. And I was so extremely frustrated by it. Not just because shaming anyone for not having sex is terrible and counterproductive, but because I was also a person who had not had sex by that point in 2019. At that time, I hadn't even masturbated in like 5 months, which is actually kind of scary when you're a professional sex toy reviewer and masturbating regularly is literally part of your job. A job that you love, a job that is finally, at the time when the trauma happened, starting to become a financially sustainable career path for the first time. And then suddenly you're just sitting there frozen for month after month, watching something you spent years building completely fizzle out because you just can't make your sad brain or your sad body do the things they need to do. So, yeah, long story short, I lost most of 2019 to personal trauma and its consequences. And then just as things on that front were starting to get better, I, like many people, lost much of 2020 to global trauma and its consequences. But now it's 2021, baby! And I really, really want to get my shit together and get this going again. I'm not gonna promise weekly videos or anything because that is way too overwhelming, but I do have some stuff planned and I would really like to put out content on a somewhat regular schedule again for you lovely people. How have y'all been, by the way? I feel like I've missed out on so much. And what's going on in the sex toy world? What are the hot new things that I need to be trying immediately? I'm completely out of the loop, so please let me know. If you want to hear more from me more often than I might upload here, I do recommend following me on Twitter at Erica_Lene, which is the only social media I've managed to keep up with. So yeah, thanks for sticking around, and I'll see you next time.